Welcome and thank you for waiting. All participants are currently in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's session. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn this session over to your host from the U.S. Census Bureau, Faith. Faith, you may begin.
Thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Faith Whittington, and I am going to be your host for today's event on data.census.gov Fundamentals for All Users. Today's webinar will focus on the fundamentals of searching for Census Bureau data using data.census.gov, including tips for conducting searches, downloading data sets, exploring interactive maps, and customizing table displays. Our presenter will guide participants through the platform, share helpful learning resources, and address some frequently asked questions. The chat panel is located all the way in the bottom right of your WebEx screen. Please submit questions to all panelists by selecting chat. Then in the tab above, select the option for direct messages, and from the drop-down menu, make the selection for all panelists. Towards the end of the webinar, we will have time to go over some of the questions that were submitted through the chat panel. With a quick note on the question and answer session today, we will focus on our main data platform, data.census.gov, and we will not be able to go in depth to address questions on the topic of geography, the collection process, methodology, or other census products. Finally, we are recording the webinar today, and all of the materials are going to be available through the Census Academy website. And again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker today, Tyson Weister. Welcome, Tyson.
Thank you, Faith, and thank you all so much for spending the next hour with us today on learning data.census.gov fundamentals for all users. My name is Tyson Weister. I work in the Center for Enterprise Dissemination, and we are responsible for data.census.gov. So joining this webinar today, you do not need to have any previous knowledge of using data.census.gov before. We're going to start and share those fundamental search strategies for someone that maybe has used the site before, but maybe hasn't. So hopefully you are familiar with us already, but in case you're not, we are the primary platform to get data from the Census Bureau. So before we dive into the demonstration today, just kind of setting the stage here, by being the primary platform, it means that we have data from the Census Bureau's most popular surveys and programs. So what does this mean? It means we have data from the decennial census back to 2000. We have data from the American Community Survey, which is conducted every year, back to 2010. And we have data for economic census and selected surveys dating back to 2012. So whether you're looking for data on people, housing, businesses, or more, the data are available here on our site. If you would like a detailed listing of data sets available by year, I encourage you to visit the link here. So with that background, as far as like the content of what you can get on our site, we're going to dive into the demonstration and really focus on how to go about searching for these data. So the objectives for today is for you to be able to leave with the ability and confidence to get started using our site. We want to make sure that you can use the single search bar and successfully use the filters to conduct your searches. Once you get to a table that has data of interest, we're also going to make sure you know how to customize the table view, save your results, and then we'll also introduce you today to options to visualize the data through our maps and our charts. So before we get started here, just hitting home, there are two primary ways to go about searching on our site. One is the single search bar. It works well if you type in keywords, especially if those keywords are a topic, geography, year, table ID, or codes such as a NAICS industry code. And again, keywords work well, not full-length questions. The other way you can search is by selecting filters. This is going to be a guided approach where you'll click through different words and phrases. You'll select one or more checkboxes as a final search selection. So that option is really helpful as a way to browse all of the available search options to you. The filters allow you to access every detailed search criteria that you can select, some of which are not accessible to you through the single search bar. And it's very precise. You don't have to rely on us interpreting your own words and phrases. So let's show you some of these different search strategies. We're going to be primarily working with filters today, but I will show a couple examples using the single search bar to start us out. So we're going to walk through 3 quick examples with the single search bar: how to find data for the population total in Idaho, how to search for a group of tables. In this case, we're going to be looking at the ACS data profiles, and then we'll also show you how to explore the geography profile available on our site. So as a whole, the single search bar works well as a good starting point and as an option for you to try to get a quick answer to your question. So let's show you here. We're going to go to data.census.gov. I do want to note we did mention that the session is being recorded today. You'll also have a posting of the slides that will show you step by step each click that I'm making on the site today. So that will be coming to Census Academy as an additional resource for you to refer back to the clicks that we're making today. Once you get to the live site, you'll notice right here in the center of the page is the single search bar. Again, typing in keywords works well. So I'm going to type in my topic, population total, and my geography, Idaho. You can press enter or click the spyglass on the right-hand side. And then we'll give it a moment to load the results. So do keep in mind, whenever you use the single search bar, we at the Census Bureau, we're making our one best guess for what we think you meant. So I always recommend look in the upper left and see how we interpreted your search. So in this case, population total is a topic filter that we found a match for, and we found a match for Idaho. So it interpreted my search as I intended. When you're on the all results page, sometimes you may get a featured statistic at the top. Here it's showing us the population count in Idaho based on the 2020 census. And then the all results page has some of the top data set recommendations, profiles, and then web pages to census.gov. Personally, I don't spend a lot of time on the all results page itself. I typically use tables, maps, charts, and profiles tabs instead. So I'm going to go ahead and click tables so we can start viewing some of the data. Do note here, these filter and results panels, you have the option to collapse and expand these out, both by pressing the chevrons at the top and through the buttons on the left. So I have both of those expanded. I can click through the different table results and then see the data on the right-hand side of my screen. Right now, it is showing me the population total from the 2020 census. Notice that decennial census is listed in the table result, but there are data from other sources like the American Community Survey. I'm going to click here on the third result. You just click the table title, B01003, total population, and we see the right-hand side of our screen has updated to show us the population total based on the 2024 ACS one-year estimates. So we can see that based on that number, Idaho now has a population estimated over 2 million. So that is the quick answer that we found to our question. While we have the table results panel open, I did just want to mention it shows you the top or the first 10 results by default. You can scroll down and page through the different options. Notice there are 737 results. If you're working with a long list, you can also increase the number of tables that are shown to you on a page from 10 at a time to 25 or 50. So just kind of noting that as a resource, if you are searching through long lists, you do have the option to make some edits here. But later on, we're going to show you ways that you can make more precise searches that don't result in hundreds of results at a time. So we're actually going to show you one trick now if you're overwhelmed with how many table results you're getting back. A good tip is to find the ACS data profiles. So here in the single search bar, I just deleted what I had before, put in ACS for American Community Survey, and then the table ID or table prefix. In this case, I put the table prefix DP for data profile and Idaho. And then I'm going to press enter. This is going to overwrite my search from before. And what I love about the data profiles is there's just 4 of them. They cover all topics of the American Community Survey at a high level. They give you some of the most popular data for those topics, and they give you those data in the form of estimate totals and percentages. So let's take a look here at the first table, DP04. It provides data for selected housing characteristics. Always recommend looking at the top and reading the columns and rows. So we see it's from the most recent 2024 ACS one-year estimates. There's a column for Idaho. There's a column for estimate and a column for percent. And on the left-hand side, you'll see different sections of this table in capital letters. For instance, housing occupancy and units in structure. So we can kind of scroll through and see lots of different housing data in this one table. For instance, how many homes are occupied versus vacant in the state? How many units are in the structure? Are they single-family homes or something else? What year the homes were built? How many rooms and bedrooms are in the home? Housing tenure, so this is home ownership status. We can see that 71.7% of occupied housing units in Idaho are occupied by the owner of the home versus a renter. The year the homeowner moved into the unit, and you kind of get the gist here. Lots of detailed home data. And when you start getting towards the bottom of the table, you'll see data available to you on home value. As an example, we can see in Idaho, the median home value is $446,400. And this is these owner value and then later on cost data are available for not just homeowners, but some of the cost data being available for renters as well. So just kind of showing that as a quick example. Again, there are 4 data profiles. So if you wanted to move beyond housing and look at people, you could browse the ACS demographic and housing estimates table, selected social characteristics, or selected economic characteristics for very similar table layouts as the one we took a deeper dive into. All right, moving on to a last good starting point for you to get familiar with our data. I'm going to start fresh on the landing page. The way you get back is by clicking the data.census.gov tab at the top. That's going to clear everything out and start you fresh. And you don't have to search just for a state. Here, I'm going to type in my next geography, Coeur d'Alene. It's a city in Idaho, and I'm going to press enter. There's multiple ways to navigate to the geography profiles. My favorite way is to select a geography, click the Profiles tab, and then in this case, the profile that I want is at the very top of the list. So I'm going to go ahead and click that geography to view the profile. The profile, essentially, we pull data from different surveys and programs, not just the ACS, but other data sets as well, all in one view for you. The profiles also have some visual components as well. So right when we get here, we can see some data at a snapshot for Coeur d'Alene. And then scrolling down, we'll see different sections of the profile, again, with the visual component. So you're going to see, in this case, population pyramids. You'll see different bar charts and maps. So kind of just interesting to scroll through. Notice there's different topics here at the top For instance, if we click in employment, it will take us to the employment section of this profile for Coeur d'Alene. We'll give it a moment to load. The first data is for class of worker, and just scrolling down, I can take a look, for instance, at commuting. We can see for residents that live in Coeur d'Alene City, Idaho, their average travel time to work is 18.1 minutes versus the state average travel time to work being 22.2 minutes. And then looking at the chart below, we can see for people living in Coeur d'Alene, we have about 75% driving alone, almost 9% that carpool, and then you see other means of transportation that they take to get to work. So a great way for you to start exploring some of the different topics available to you. The last thing that I want to note about these profiles, they do include clickable links to the source tables. So for instance, we see this chart came from data in table S0801. Once we click that, it's going to take us to that table. It's going to maintain our geography selection that we see here in the column. And in many cases, it's going to take you to a table that has even more data related to commuting. So if we scroll down, just as one quick example, we could start looking at immediately from this table data on travel time to work and see that in Coeur d'Alene, many people are leaving to work between 6 a.m. and about 7:30. We see large percentages of workers traveling to work during that time. All right, so the single search bar, again, to summarize, it's a great way to start your search, to try to get a quick answer to your question, but the most precise way to conduct your search is to use the filters. They also allow you access to the full set of detailed search criteria. So we're going to introduce the filters to you now. We're also going to show you how to compare more than one geography in the same table. So for this example, we're going to pull up median household income data for Nebraska, Lincoln City, and zip code tabulation area 68527. So back here on the site, we want to start fresh from the landing page. The filters are located just below the single search bar where you see the phrase Explore Filters. Remember, we're going to click through different words and phrases. Anywhere we see this arrow or chevron means when we make that click, we're going to have more detailed options to choose from, and we're looking for one or more checkboxes as a final search selection. For your filters on a high level, you're going to be able to select geographies, topics, surveys, years, and codes. And you typically want to start with whatever you consider most important. Oftentimes that will be your geographies. So here under the geography heading, I'm going to click state and then choose Nebraska. Once you mark checkbox, it's going to add the filter in the upper left and reload the panel. So from here, I want to select Lincoln. That's considered a city that we're going to find in the place level geography. So on the left, I choose place. I follow the prompts, first choosing Nebraska. Get a list of all of the places in Nebraska. There's multiple ways you can get to Lincoln. The important part is to make sure that you mark the checkbox in order to register it as a final search selection. Again, it's reloading the panel on the left. We're going to be choosing the zip code area for our final geography. Anytime you want data for people or housing, you want the geography called zip code tabulation area. It's hard to miss because it's highlighted here on the left-hand side as one of the most popular geographies. So click zip code area. Once again, follow the prompts, choosing Nebraska. And then there's this search bar at the top, which is what I use to select Lincoln. In this case, I'm going to type in 68527. It's looking at the list of all of the zip codes that were just loaded. So do be mindful that this is looking for exact text match. Be mindful of your spelling. And remember, check a box in order to register it as a final selection. So here we have our 3 geographies. Once the panel loads, I'm going to select the income topic filter. Under geographies, we'll see topics. And one of the topic categories says income and poverty. We click there, then click income and earnings. And I'm going to choose the checkbox for income, households, families, individuals. You may see more than one checkbox that seems relevant. My general guidance is choose one, make your first best guess. Notice that these all have X's. If you need to remove a filter and try a different one later on, you can always change these, but choose your best guess and go with it. So 3 geography filters, 1 topic filter. We'll click the search button in the lower right and tables at the top. All right, so there are 431 table results for income that are available for at least one of the geographies we selected. The very first result says income in the past 12 months. I'm going to look at the data, browsing the columns here. I see Nebraska. Then I see Lincoln City. And then when I keep going to the right, I'm at the end of the table. So no data for my zip code area. One thing to note, ACS 1-year estimates are only available for geographies with population of 65,000 or more. So what we need to do is switch from the ACS 1-year estimates to ACS 5-year estimates, which are provided for all geographic areas, regardless of population size, down to census tract and block group levels. So multiple ways to switch between the different products. There's a view all 29 products here on the left, where we can choose ACS 5-year. And then this drop-down menu at the top of each table. It allows us to switch between 1 and 5-year. Also notice I mentioned the data goes back to 2010. If you want to access this table historically, you can also do so with this drop-down menu. So we've selected ACS 5-year. Let's take another look at the table. We have Nebraska. We have Lincoln City. And we have zip code tabulation area 68527. So we have all 3 of our geographies now. We just need to look at the data. Within each geography, there is a column for income of households, family income. There's a column for a subset of families, so married couple family income, and another subset of families being non-family households and their income. So I want to look at household income, and on the left-hand side, I can see that this table provides data for distribution of household income. There's also a row for median income, and we can see in Nebraska, median household income is $76,475. So this has the data that I'm interested in. As a note, if you would like to simplify the table view, there is a button at the top of this table called columns. You may need to click more tools in order to see it. And this allows you to edit which columns are shown on your table. So what I'm going to do here is uncheck the box to remove all of the columns. I'm going to put in the columns for households, and then delete the columns for non-family households. And then go back to the table view. If you want to toggle the margin of error on and off, that's also available to you. So here, just looking side by side, we can see Nebraska's median household income, $76,000. Lincoln City is the estimate is $71,000 roughly, and the zip code area being an estimated $100,000. So once you've gone through these steps to find data that you're interested in, there's lots of other useful tools at the top of the table. I want to show you a few of them. One is the notes. So this is going to populate based on the particular data set that you're clicked into. What you'll typically find is links to technical documentation and information that may help make sense of what you're seeing on screen. For instance, if we were seeing an asterisk or a dash instead of actual values in the table, this would tell you what those special characters mean. What I wanted to point out here, especially for ACS tables, The technical documentation is a very helpful resource that's included in these table notes. When you open the technical documentation, one thing that's popular with users is the subject definitions. So if I wanted to get into the weeds and understand exactly what is and isn't counted as income in this value for household income, I can research all about it in the ACS subject definitions. Beyond the notes, some other helpful information for you. Once you've gone through these steps, maybe you want to save what you have. So a couple different ways to do it. One is to download the data. So when you click the download button at the top, you'll get a pop-up window, and this has a couple different options for you. I typically show the two primary ones. That would be Excel and Zip. There is a description that shows you Excel's presentation ready format. So if you as a human want to view this, I typically recommend the Excel format and download the data. We'll open up this file. The Excel will have two tabs. The first one is information with source data. The one that you're probably most interested in is the second tab called data. So look for that tab, click data, and you'll see on your screen, this is almost identical to what we were viewing on the table display. It has our 3 columns, and it's even accounted for those columns that we removed prior to downloading this Excel file. So very easy to read. I also wanted to mention the Excel format is optimized for printing. So this means that it is going to print the entire table. If that table spans multiple pages, your headers are going to carry over from page to page, so you'll be able to make sense of everything that you are printing. All right, the second download option I wanted to show you is the zip file format. So this is machine readable. It includes GeoIDs. So I'll show you what it looks like really quickly here. When you click the zip radio button, download data, it will prompt which vintages that you want to download, defaulting at the one that you're currently clicked into. And we'll download that zip file. You'll have a progress bar in the lower right, load up to 100%, and then a zip file for you to open in your downloads. When you open the zip file, you'll see there's 3 files within it. The one that you're going to be most interested in is the one that ends in -data. So we'll open up that file. And this, again, is a flat machine readable file. So what does that mean? It means that each geography has its own row. There's no special formatting or indentation. And as you follow the row across, you see all of the estimates that we saw in the nice table display, but in this flat format, which is very useful. Again, if you wanted to work with this, maybe you want to take this and map it in your own mapping software, maybe you want to sort the data, this is going to be a great file format for you. Back on the site, another way you can save your results is through the share button. This is going to give you an option to share quickly through social media, email, or a URL. When you share that URL with a colleague or come back to it later, it's going to take you to the same table and geography selection. And then the final thing I wanted to show is the cite button. So here at the top, we do have citations ready for you in popular formats like MLA, APA, and more. All right, so that's going to wrap up what I wanted to show for the table toolbar. Let's go on to our next example, but I did want to recap a couple of common questions that we run into that were highlighted in the last example. So one common question from data users is, how do I select my city or town? For most states across the country, those are considered a place level geography. So you'll want to search place in the filter panel. For some states, particularly those in the Northeast and some states in the Midwest, what you think of as your city or town is actually a county subdivision. It's a legally defined area that's classified as that, and you would want to find your geography through the county subdivision panel. Another question is, how do I access data for zip codes? If you're looking for data on people or housing through the decennial census or American Community Survey, the technical term for that geography area is zip code tabulation area. They are representations of zip codes that form actual shapes on a map. If you're accessing data from our economic surveys and programs, you do want the actual zip code geography that's hidden a little bit more. It's accessible to you under all geographies and then 5-digit zip code. And then another common question, why is my geography missing from the table? In most cases, this is because you're clicked into the ACS one-year estimates. Those are provided for geographies with 65,000 people or more, and you may need to manually switch to ACS 5-year estimates as we did in the demonstration. All right, so moving on to our next example, we showed you how to look at filters. Now I want to show you how to search by address. We're going to look at veterans living in the census tract that includes 111 Harbor Drive, San Diego. We'll start fresh on the landing page. Notice there is a search by address button directly below the single search bar. It is very straightforward. You fill out the prompt when you open it. So I'm going to type in that address. If you have been to a convention at the San Diego Convention Center, you have been at this address. Maybe you are going to Comic-Con next week, or you've been there for another conference. But anyways, you can type in any address, click the search button. You'll get to the address result card if the system found a match for your address. So here it's telling us that, yes, we did indeed find a matching 111 Harbor Drive address. And then it gives us a list of Census Bureau geographies that this address range falls within. Notice that these are clickable links. So for instance, when we see Census Tract 54.03, we can click that geography and it will give us the geography selection just as if we had selected it through the filter panel. If you're new to census tracts, don't worry, we're going to show this on a map in just a moment. Think of this as neighborhood level data. So from here, I'll go ahead and click tables at the top. There's almost 1,300 table results for this geography, but we showed you how you can use the filters. So if I want to find data for veterans, on the left-hand side, we see topics, populations, and people. And I'll mark the checkbox for veterans. So you can add filters in multiple places as you're going through searches across the site. I'm going to click the X to close this panel. And I can see there are now just 20 tables for veterans on this particular geography. The very first one, S2101, veteran status, tells us there are 2,264 people 18 and over living in this census tract, approximately 333 veterans, which is 14.7% of the civilian population 18 and over. So just another way for you to go about searching is that address search box. If you'd like to visualize what this census tract represents, you can click maps at the top. In some cases, if it doesn't zoom you into your geography by default, you may need to manually change the layer of your map. That's the primary level of geography shown on your map. So I'm going to click layer and click census tract. And it zooms us in. This is the census tract that we selected that we were looking at 14.7% veterans. And as you zoom in on the map, you'll also see straight lines and street labels populate. So if you knew what this address was before you typed it in, you'd have a better sense for what this census tract area represents. Great, moving on, we're going to play more with the maps to show you how to map data for multiple geographies and look at that data visually. So for this example, Again, we're going to be comparing across geographies. We're going to look at both maps and charts, and we're going to look at the percent 65 years and over for all census tracts in Barnstable County, Massachusetts, from the ACS 5-year data profiles. You'll want to start fresh on the landing page. Here I'll click Explore Filters. I'll start with my geography, in this case, census tract. Following the prompts, choosing Massachusetts, Barnstable County, and mark the box, all census tracts within Barnstable County. So I have my geography. We showed you how to search by topic filter. Just below topics, there is the survey filter. So I'm going to choose American Community Survey. 5-year estimates, because we've selected census tracts, and data profiles. So this is a precise way to select data profiles. I showed you in the single search. You can also type in DP in the single search bar. At any rate, I have my geography and my survey filter. I'm going to go ahead and click search to run the filter. And we want to visualize the data through maps and charts. With that said, all of our visualizations are based on data tables. So I always recommend make sure you're familiar with the table first and then go to map or chart it. So I'm actually going to click the Tables tab. And I want to look at a visual for percent 65 and over. The very first table is DP05, ACS Demographic and Housing Estimates. The topic is sex and age. I see different age ranges, and then a row of the table for 65 years and over. So as an example, in Census Tract 101, 25% of the population is 65 years and over. As I scroll to the right, I can get these data for the remaining tracts in the county. So great that we have this for you in a table format. What if you want to look at this on a map? Well, from here, you just click the Maps tab at the top. First thing you'll want to do, make sure on the left that you're still clicked into the table that has the data you want to map out. You'll want to make sure that you're viewing census tracts, that it's zoomed you into the area. We can see census tract in our legend. I can see the boundaries are census tracts. And again, if you want to manually confirm, you can click the layer button and be sure that census tract is outlined in that orange. So all good to go there. The only thing that I need to tell the system is out of all of the estimates in that very large data table, which one do we want shown on the map? So that is where you click into the variable drop-down menu. You'll see all of the variables listed in the same order that the rows were in the data table. So remember, we scrolled down a bit. We saw a row for 65 years and over. It's in the same placement here. Before I click that, just noting here, you can map the total number, and it defaults to mapping percentages because percentages are available for this table. So I'm going to keep percent, choose 65 years and over. And now we have our map. So very easy to visually make sense of this information. It is telling us that census tracts with darker shades of blue have higher percentages of their population age 65 years and over. You can zoom in again. As I mentioned earlier, you'll see street lines and street labels populate. And you can click in individual geography and see, as an example, in this tract, 118.01, 57.6% of people are age 65 and over. So this is one visual option for you, a map. Another way you can visualize this is through our chart functionality, clicking More Tools and Chart. If you navigate to the charts through this method from the maps, it's going to remember your variable selection that we're mapping percent 65 and over. If you need to change it, it's almost identical to the way you change a variable on a map. And I'm going to switch the chart type from bar chart to column chart. And there's also this sort by option. If you wanted to sort the data in ascending or descending order, this is another way we can visualize the percent 65 and over by census tract in Barnstable County. All right. Wanted to show you a final example looking at economic data in more table customization options that are applicable to what we call these flat tables. So for this example, I'm going to be looking at a sorted list of the number of bookstores across all counties in New York. The NAICS code for bookstores is 451211. You could find this by searching bookstores on data.census.gov and looking at the filter, or you can visit census.gov/NAICS. And there's many other ways, but I did a little research ahead of time and found the NAICS code that I actually need. So on the site here, we're going to start fresh on the landing page, click Explore Filters, choose whatever's most important first. In this case, maybe I want to select the bookstore NAICS industry code. So under codes on the left, click industry code NAICS. Follow the prompts. Bookstore is 45 retail trade. Then we see 451. That's for sporting goods, hobby, musical instrument, and bookstores. Then we see 4512, bookstores and news dealers. 45121, again, bookstores and news dealers. And we see 451211. So now we've got down to just the category of bookstores. Remember, once you're kind of reach the level that you're wanting to get the data for, mark the checkbox. That's a final search selection, and we see bookstores in the upper left. While I'm here, just kind of want to note this is a very helpful way for you to explore different NAICS categories. There is also a chevron at the top that lets you go back one click, and you can continue to go back click by click through this chevron and maybe choose different categories to explore. At any rate, I have the NAICS code that I want to keep. Last thing I'm going to do on the left-hand side, choose county, follow the prompt for New York, and choose all counties within New York. So I have my NAICS code and my geography selection. I'm going to click search in the lower right. Just going to let this load a little bit first. And then I'm going to choose tables. There's 52 tables for bookstores at the county level. The very first one comes from table CB 2300 CBP. This is the county business patterns table from the 2023 vintage. So on the right-hand side of our screen, we're going to take a deeper look at the data. Notice that there are 62 rows of data for this table, and we do see some of the geographies have more than one row. So take a little bit of time, understand why you are seeing data for more than one geography for a particular row. And in this case, we can see that the data are broken down based on the employment size of establishments. So one of the rows of data for Bronx County, row 2, represents the total bookstores that have paid employees. And then the second row of data for Bronx County represents bookstores with paid employees that have less than 5 employees. So in many cases, you'll want to clean up the level of detail that these tables are showing to you. What you do is hover over the column. There's also a filters button. When you click the 3 horizontal bars, you'll see a filter icon, and then you'll be able to choose which rows of these data points you want to keep and which ones you want to hide from view. So for my purpose, I just want to look at the total for each county that this table provides data for bookstores. So I uncheck the boxes, just keep all establishments marked. When I choose apply, it is going to remove all of the rows that do not have all establishments as the value of meaning of employment size. So we go from 62 down to 25 rows. So this is one row per county that is covered through this table for bookstores. Now, when I scroll to the right of the table, I can see the number of bookstore establishments that have paid employees. I can see annual payroll and number of employees working at these bookstores. One thing that I don't see anymore is the geography. So what you can do is pin a column, any of these columns in view as you scroll right and left. To pin a column, hover over the column header, click the 3 horizontal bars, hover over pin column and choose pin left or right. And now we keep this in view as we scroll right and left through the table so we know what these data values represent. In these column headers for these economic tables and other flat tables on our site, you can click them to sort the data as well. So we can see that New York County, New York has 96 bookstores with paid employees. That's 757 workers employed at bookstores. All right, so just want to close out with some resources here before we transition to questions. One, we invite you to connect with us. You can send us data questions by clicking help and contact us. You can also send us feedback on ways that we can make data.census.gov more intuitive to you as we continually improve the site. We also encourage you to sign up for email updates. When you visit the QR code in the upper right, you'll be able to check data.census.gov and subscribe to updates. This will alert you to important system enhancements, data releases, and educational opportunities to make the most of our site. We also have workshops available if you'd like some hands-on practice using data.census.gov. These are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours in length. They're online, free of charge, and you can visit the QR code for the listings of available dates. These are offered regularly, so if you don't see dates currently available, please check back for future offerings of these workshops. We have workshops on basic, advanced, data.census.gov, mapping, and many other topics of interest. And if you'd like to provide feedback to us in a more structured format, we also are looking for usability testers. This would be you volunteering for an hour of your time to participate in a usability study. What you would do is share screen online, and we would give you some exercises to work through and ask you to verbalize your thought process as you're going through the site. This helps us observe how people are intuitively interacting with the site so we can make more informed updates. So please visit the links here if you'd like to sign up for that. And with that, I will turn things over to Faith. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyson. And in a few minutes, we will start going over some of the questions submitted through the chat panel. So again, thank you to everyone that has submitted a question. Before we dive into our questions, I want to let you know that we've set up a quick evaluation survey that will pop up when you exit WebEx. When you see the survey window, please take a moment to share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear what worked well, what we could do better, and especially any other topics you're interested in learning about in future webinars or workshops. If you have questions remaining after our session concludes, or if you prefer to email us a question, feel free to reach out to any of the email boxes listed here. If you are a member of the media, please contact the Public Information Office at the email listed there. For general data.census.gov questions from the public or for training requests, please reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination. We always look forward to hearing from you. And all right, let's go ahead and transition to questions that we've received. So Tyson, we have had a few great questions submitted through the Q&A panel. So as a reminder to everyone, we are focusing today's discussion on data.census.gov. So with that, Tyson, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and read out the first question for you.
Great.
Great. Okay. So what would the best method of using filters search for downloading housing data for all U.S. Counties be? I have downloaded a file, but it has many columns and most look like there are no data. Shows an X in a lot of the columns. Looking for things such as occupancy rates, vacancy rates, values, and rent.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What would the best method of using filters for downloading housing data for all U.S. counties be?
Got it.
Was the
Okay.
first part. Yeah, pretty much.
So, um, using the strategies that we showed earlier, I will kind of mention the topics filter may be helpful. We showed how to do geography filters. So specifically for county, there's a all counties within the US filter. Or if you wanted to narrow that down further to counties in a particular state, you could certainly do that. And then on the left-hand side, there's topic filters for housing as a whole, and then you can kind of drill into more detailed housing topics. So that would be like, from a filtering perspective, the best way to get you to tables that would have the data that you're interested in by selecting, again, housing being very generic or something more detailed. But generally, I would recommend one at a time, going to try one of the filters, going to the table and downloading the data. If you're seeing lots of strange characters in the results, I would recommend making sure you're clicked into ACS 5-year instead of perhaps ACS 1-year. If you've already done that, then I would also recommend just shooting us a link to the particular table that you're trying to download and kind of specifying in that email those exact data points and what you're seeing, just to make sure that you didn't inadvertently get into a product that maybe wasn't appropriate for your particular download. Because at the county level, I would typically see that data. I would expect that data would be available for many, if or most of the counties. So please write us in with the particular table that you've downloaded. And also, if you grab the link at the top and shoot us the email, it helps us see exactly what you're seeing on screen.
Thank you, Tyson. And I have one more question. Can you please show the slide about keywords that you can use for search bar on data.census.gov?
Yeah, let me go back to that. So we have topics, geographies, table IDs, year, and codes. They're just examples. They're not the only keywords you can search, but they're recommended ones that would lead you to filters.
Great. And we have one more question. To get to tables with less data, such as the ACS tables, how would I select that for my search?
Is there more context for the question? I'm not understanding the
Yes,
less
let me
data
rephrase
part.
that. I have been using the ACS survey under surveys. Not sure if that's the same thing.
Can
So
I
for
interrupt
the,
real quick? I'm sorry, Tyson. It
yeah,
was one of the suggestions for the questions was to maybe use detailed tables that have fewer columns. So that's kind of, I think, what that question was in reference to. Getting smaller, fewer columned tables, if that makes sense.
got it. Yep. So let me go back here. So if one of the earlier questions was just feeling overwhelmed with how much results were in the downloaded file, not necessarily like the X's in particular, oops. There are different products from the ACS. So for today, we showed mostly data profiles. We also looked at subject tables. We did look at one detailed table in the very first example. So under American Community Survey 5-year or 1-year estimates, you'll see these different product types. So data profiles are really great if you're feeling overwhelmed with how many results you're getting back. If you want smaller tables, the detailed tables tend to have fewer total rows in the table, and they're simple tables. So they typically have just one column for each geography with the estimate and the margin of error, and that's it. So if you're trying to work with the data in download, yes, the detailed tables may be of interest to you. If you browse the technical documentation on the ACS website or Google Table IDs Explained, ACS Table IDs Explained, there's a web page that explains these different products in more detail. In case you'd like to learn more about those detailed options, there are benefits to using one type of product from the ACS versus another, depending on your use case.
All right. Great, thank you. And thank you all for your great questions. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for the Q&A today. So if we didn't have time to address your question, we do encourage that you send us an email to our email address at census.data@census.gov. We'd love to help answer any other questions that you may still have. And with that, Tyson, I'll go ahead and throw things back over to you for final thoughts.
Great. So just wanted to mention, we have a dedicated resource page to help you make the most of data.census.gov when you visit the link in the upper left or the QR code. This will take you to our suite of educational materials, recorded webinars, the workshops I mentioned, answers to FAQs, and PDFs with step-by-step instructions, as well as some short video tutorials. So do know that's available to you as a resource. We also have local data dissemination specialists located throughout the country. There is a DDS assigned to your state, and they provide training on all things census data in any tool. So my area is focused on data.census.gov and the API and microdata access tool specifically. These data specialists are the jack of all trades. You can visit their resource hub on census.gov/academy or request a training or send a data question at census.askdata@census.gov or contacting 1-844-ASK-DATA. So we do hope that you continue the conversation with us. We hope to see you in a future webinar and reach out to our local data specialists. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I will turn things over to Anthony to wrap up.
Thank you all. That is your webinar for today. Just remember, when you close out, you'll have a survey that pops up, and we would appreciate your feedback. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.